My parents dumped me in an orphanage for my brother. Now they expect me to fund his college. I am Liam, 27 years old, and my story begins long before I ever understood what it meant to belong. I grew up feeling like a stranger in my own home, though I didn't fully grasp why until much later. My parents, Michael and Claire, had me when they were still young, struggling to navigate adult life. We weren't wealthy, but we weren't poor either. My father drove a bus and my mother worked as a receptionist at a small medical office. For the longest time, I thought we were a normal family. And then Lucas was born. From as far back as I can remember, I was the forgotten child. No pictures of me decorated the walls, my clothes were always secondhand, and the only toys I had were the ones my cousins no longer wanted. If my parents ever took me anywhere, it felt more like an obligation than a desire. I didn't understand their indifference until I was old enough to piece it all together. When my mother became pregnant with my brother, it was as if the sun had risen for the first time in their lives. The celebration of his arrival was everything mine had never been. Family members brought gifts, spoke of how the family would now be complete, and called him a blessing. I was 6 years old and hearing for the first time that I was not. The day Lucas was born, I saw it in their eyes. The love, the adoration, the devotion they had never shown me. It was then I understood, I was a mistake. An accident they had merely tolerated until their true happiness arrived. I tried to be a part of the excitement, to bond with my baby brother, but my mother always pushed me away. Don't touch him too much, Liam. You could make him sick. Don't make noise while he's sleeping. We don't want him to wake up. Go play somewhere else. You're bothering us. My father was less cruel, but he did nothing to stop it. I was fading, becoming invisible in my own home. And then, one winter afternoon, my mother took me for a car ride. I remember thinking it was strange that I hadn't packed any of my things. Liam, we're going to a place where you'll be better off. At first, I thought she was taking me to my grandparents' house or maybe an aunt's. But as the city disappeared behind us and we pulled up to a large iron gate with a worn-out sign that read, Sandvent Children's Home, I understood everything. She got out of the car. I followed, my small hands trembling. A woman with gray hair and a stern face greeted us. My mother spoke to her for a few minutes before finally bending down to look me in the eye. You'll be fine here, Liam. No hug. No goodbye. No tears. She turned and walked away, never looking back. I stood frozen, watching the car disappear down the road, my breath fogging in the cold air. A woman from the home took my hand, leading me inside, but I couldn't move. Couldn't think. Couldn't understand. It wasn't until weeks later that I overheard a worker say, seems they left him because they couldn't afford both kids. That was the day I knew, I was expendable. The moment my brother was born, my place in the family ceased to exist. The first nights in the orphanage were unbearable. I cried silently into my pillow, wondering what I had done to deserve this. But there were no answers, only the hollow reality that I was alone. The orphanage wasn't a terrible place, but it wasn't home either. The caregivers provided food, shelter, and education, but not love. Love was a luxury we didn't have. As the years passed, I stopped waiting for my parents to return. At first, every time the phone rang or a visitor arrived, I felt a spark of hope. But they never came. Never wrote. Never asked about me. My family had erased me, moved on as if I had never existed. When I turned 18, I aged out of the system. I had no home, no family, but I had something valuable: resilience. I worked day and night, saving every penny, determined never to depend on anyone again. My life was mine to build, and I swore I would never look back. Then one day the past came calling. An unknown number appeared on my phone. I answered without thinking, and on the other end, a voice I hadn't heard in 20 years sent a chill down my spine. Liam, it's Mom. Her voice was exactly as I remembered, cold, emotionless, as if this were an everyday conversation rather than the first time she had spoken to me in 2 decades. My grip on the phone tightened, 1,000 thoughts colliding in my head. Why was she calling me now? How had she found my number? What did she expect me to say? Liam, are you there? I should have hung up. I should have shut the door just as she had done to me. But against my better judgment, I took a breath and forced myself to speak. Why are you calling me? Silence stretched between us before she finally answered. We need to talk. It's important. We. Not, I. Not, I missed you, or, I'm sorry. Just we. I don't see what could be important between us, I said, my voice sharp. You left me in an orphanage when I was 7. 20 years later, you call as if nothing happened? Liam, she sighed as if my resentment was exhausting. I know many years have passed, but don't think I never thought about you. I laughed bitterly. Not enough to come looking for me. There was another pause before she tried again. Please, son, can we talk in person? Son. As if she had the right to call me that. I'm busy, I replied coldly. I don't have time to play happy family. It's about your brother, she blurted out before I could hang up. Lucas. My chest tightened. Gritting my teeth, I remained silent. Lucas is in trouble, Liam, she continued, her voice laced with urgency. And we need your help. My help? My disbelief turned to anger. How exactly do you think I can help you? Just one meeting, she pleaded. We'll explain everything. Something in her tone told me they were desperate. And desperate people always had an agenda. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was the desire to finally face them and see if they had even a shred of humanity left. The next day, I arrived early at the cafe where we agreed to meet. It was a quiet place in downtown Austin, too normal for something so surreal. I ordered a black coffee and took a seat by the window, watching the world outside as I prepared to step into the past I had spent my entire life running from. 20 minutes passed before the cafe door swung open, and there they were, my parents. My heart pounded, a storm of emotions battling inside me. Anger, resentment, a sliver of anxiety. They hesitated at the entrance, scanning the room until their eyes found me. I stayed seated, watching them approach like strangers walking into an uncomfortable confrontation. Michael, my father, looked years older than I remembered. Streaks of gray ran through his once dark hair, his posture weighed down by burdens he had likely carried for too long. My mother, Claire, looked thinner, paler. Her nervous expression was a stark contrast to the cold, detached woman who had abandoned me 2 decades ago. I didn't give them a chance to dictate the pace of the conversation. I gestured toward the chairs opposite me and spoke firmly. Sit. My tone was sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. They obeyed without protest. My mother attempted a timid smile, but I refused to acknowledge it. Thank you for coming, Liam, my father began, his voice uncertain. I know this must be difficult for you. I let out a short, bitter laugh. You have no idea. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. Let's skip the small talk. Why are we here? My mother jumped in quickly, her voice carefully measured. Liam, first we want to tell you that we're sorry for everything that happened. I raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. Sorry for what exactly? For leaving me behind like I was nothing? Or for pretending I didn't exist for 20 years? They both lowered their eyes as if my words physically weighed them down. My father cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably. We know we made mistakes, Liam. We don't expect you to forgive us immediately, we just want you to hear us out. I exhaled slowly, my patience already thinning. Fine. Talk. Claire clasped her hands together, staring down at them as she spoke. Your brother Lucas, he's 20 now. He's always been a bright kid. He worked hard, got accepted into the University of Texas to study medicine. It's his dream. A pang of resentment struck deep in my chest. Lucas, the golden child. The one they had chosen. He had the life I had only dared to imagine. I forced my voice to remain neutral. And? My father hesitated before continuing. We lost the house a few months ago. I don't make enough to cover tuition and your mother's been sick. We have no way to continue paying for his education. I almost laughed at the absurdity. So you want money? My mother flinched at my bluntness. Liam, we know it's unfair to ask, but Lucas is innocent in all of this. He's always wanted to meet you. He's asked about you for years. I scoffed. Does he want to meet me or does he need tuition money? They exchanged a look, caught off guard by my directness. My father sighed. He doesn't know we're asking you for this. We thought, maybe you could help. We know you've done well for yourself. He hesitated, then added, we saw on social media that you have a good job, a good life. You could help without it affecting you too much. Something inside me snapped. My hands curled into fists under the table. You don't get to decide what affects me, I said, my voice dangerously low. You threw me away. You erased me from your lives. And now, when it's convenient, you come back expecting me to fix your problems. My mother looked down, shame flickering across her face. My father tried to speak, but I cut him off. Why me? I demanded. Why not ask someone else? A friend or relative? Anyone who actually mattered to you? My father's expression tightened. Because no one else will help us, he admitted reluctantly. After the bankruptcy, everyone turned their backs on us. You're our last hope. The words cut deep. They had abandoned me, erased me, but now that they had no one left, suddenly I was important. I clenched my jaw, trying to steady my breath. I had dreamed of this moment, The day they would come crawling back, desperate. But somehow, it didn't feel as satisfying as I had imagined. I pushed my chair back and stood, tossing a bill onto the table. "I'm not paying for Lucas' college," I said, my voice unwavering. "If you want even a shred of dignity, tell him the truth. Tell him you had another son. Tell him you threw him away like garbage and now expect him to finance the life of the one you actually loved." They stared at me speechless. Ashamed. But I wasn't finished. "And don't ever contact me again. I survived without you and I guarantee Lucas will too." I turned and walked away, my body trembling with emotion. Stepping outside, I inhaled the crisp air, filling my lungs with something I hadn't felt in years: liberation. Sitting in my car, I gripped the steering wheel, my mind racing. For years, I had fantasized about seeing them regret what they did. But there had been no tears, no heartfelt apologies. Just desperation. Just need. I considered calling John and Mary, the real parents who had given me love when no one else would. But I knew Mary would tell me to forgive them. That carrying resentment would only hurt me. And maybe she was right. But I wasn't ready. I drove for a while, letting the city blur past, my emotions slowly settling. Eventually, I parked at a quiet park and sat on a bench watching families, mothers hugging their children, fathers playing games. The kind of love I had never known. Then my phone rang. An unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello?" A brief silence. Then a voice, hesitant yet familiar. "Liam? It's Lucas." A knot formed in my stomach. I wasn't ready for this. "How did you get my number?" "Mom gave it to me," he admitted. His voice was quiet, uncertain. I wanted to talk to you. To meet you." I stiffened. "Let me guess. They told you I'm the missing brother with the magical ability to pay for your college?" Pause. "No. Well, yes. They mentioned something about that," he admitted. "But that's not why I called." I narrowed my eyes. "Then why?" Another silence, then a quiet sigh. "Because I grew up knowing I had a brother no one talked about. Because I spent my whole life sensing that something was missing." His words caught me off guard. I had spent so long assuming Lucas was the golden child, the one who had everything I never did. But now he was telling me he had felt the absence too. I exhaled sharply. "Lucas, don't play games with me. I don't know what they told you, but you didn't grow up missing me. You had everything." "I didn't know you, Liam," he said firmly. "I can't say I missed you because I didn't even know who you were. But I knew something wasn't right." I stayed silent, processing his words. "I don't want you to pay for my college," he continued. "I just want to understand why you disappeared." I let out a bitter laugh. "I disappeared because they abandoned me, Lucas. Because they left me in an orphanage and never looked back." Silence. Then finally Lucas spoke, his voice heavier now. "I didn't know that." "Of course not," I muttered. "They didn't want you to." I sighed, rubbing a hand over my face. "If you want to meet me," I said, "then we do it with the truth on the table." "I want to hear everything," he said, his voice unwavering. For the first time, I had a choice. And for the first time, I wasn't the one being left behind. We agreed to meet at a different cafe far from my parents' house. I refused to return to that toxic environment. When I arrived, Lucas was already there, sitting at a small table with a coffee in hand. He looked restless, as if he wasn't sure how to begin. I sat across from him, silent at first, just watching. He had my mother's eyes, familiar yet different. There was something in his expression, something real. He wasn't like them. "Thank you for coming," he said, breaking the silence. I gave a small nod but didn't soften my gaze. "You wanted to meet me. Fine. But if we're going to talk, I want the truth. What did they tell you about me?" Lucas fidgeted with his cup before answering. "Not much. I always knew I had a brother, but whenever I asked, Mom and Dad avoided the subject. They said things were complicated when I was born. That you left with distant relatives because they couldn't afford to raise both of us." I let out a bitter laugh. "Distant relatives? They abandoned me, Lucas. Left me in an orphanage. Never came back." His face tensed. "I found out yesterday when you showed up. I confronted them and they admitted it. But they said it like it was logical, like they had no other choice." I crossed my arms. "And what do you think?" He hesitated, then finally answered, his voice steady. "I think it was cruel. There's no excuse." For the first time, I believed him. He wasn't just parroting their words, he was trying to understand. I exhaled, leaning back in my chair. For years, I'd seen Lucas as the reason I was thrown away. But looking at him now, he seemed like just another victim of their manipulation, just like I had been. "I don't hate you, Lucas," I admitted. "But I can't pretend we're brothers." He nodded. I understand. I don't expect you to forget. I just want to know the real story. So I told him. I told him how, at 7 years old, my mother put me in the car without a word. How she left me at the orphanage doors and never looked back. How I spent years waiting, hoping, believing they'd come for me, but they never did. I told him about the cold nights, the hunger, the loneliness of watching other children leave with new families while I remained invisible. And how, when I was 10, John and Mary finally gave me the love our parents never had. Lucas ran a hand through his hair, looking shaken. I had no idea. No, you didn't, I said. And now that you do you still think they deserve my help? Lucas swallowed hard. He was struggling. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I told him. But if you ever thought our parents were good people, I hope you now understand that they're not. He shifted uncomfortably. I know they're not perfect, but they're still our parents, Liam. My jaw clenched. They're not my parents. I don't owe them anything. A long silence stretched between us before Lucas finally sighed. If you decide not to help them, I'll understand. I raised an eyebrow. Were you expecting me to? He shook his head. No. I just wanted to meet you. To know who you really are, not the story they told me. I studied him. For the first time, I believed him. Okay, I said. But don't expect this to make us a family. Lucas gave me a sad smile. No. But maybe we can talk. Once in a while. In the days that followed, I tried to push the meeting out of my mind. But an uneasy feeling lingered, as if something was coming. And I was right. One afternoon, while reviewing restaurant paperwork, my phone rang. Mom. I ignored it. It rang again. And again. Finally, I answered, irritation burning in my chest. What do you want? Liam, how dare you fill Lucas's head with lies? She snapped. I leaned back in my chair, a slow satisfaction creeping in. So she finally found out. They're not lies, Mom. I told him the truth, the one you hid from him his entire life. You made us look like monsters, she yelled. You didn't need my help for that, I shot back. You do it perfectly fine on your own. There was a pause. I could hear her breathing, trying to compose herself. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, almost pleading. Your brother is devastated, she said. You filled his heart with hate. I rolled my eyes. I didn't fill him with hate. I opened his eyes. Or did you expect him to believe your story forever? She was silent for a moment. Then her tone shifted again, calculated. Manipulative. Liam, we made mistakes. We know that. But we're family. And in difficult times, family supports each other. I laughed, cold and sharp. Family? You have no idea what that word means. Don't you think we deserve a second chance? She tried again. I clenched my jaw, my patience wearing thin. No. Because you never gave me one. Silence. Then the real reason for the call. So you really won't help us? I stood looking out my office window. The city kept moving. The world kept turning. And I was no longer the helpless child they abandoned. No, I said firmly. And don't call me again. Liam, you can't do this. We're your blood. I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling something between relief and sadness. No, you're just people who brought me into the world. Nothing more. And I hung up. I thought that was the end. But 2 days later, a flood of messages proved me wrong. You're selfish. Your parents gave everything for you and now you're abandoning them. How could you do this? Confused, I opened Facebook. My mother had made a public post. It is difficult as a mother to accept that one of your children denies you in your time of greatest need. We raised Liam with love, but now that we need help, he has turned his back on us. We don't want money, we just want him to remember that he will always have a family. It was a trap. Hundreds of people supported them, calling me ungrateful. Worse, they dragged Lucas into it, making it seem like I was taking away his future out of spite. My phone rang. Lucas, did you see what they did? He asked. Yeah, they're manipulators. I had no idea they were going to do this, he said. I told them it wasn't fair, but they did it anyway. I sighed. I know, Lucas. But understand something, this is the last straw. What are you going to do? Something they don't expect. That night I wrote my own post. I told my story. The truth. I posted it. And within hours, everything changed. The people who attacked me started questioning my parents' lies. The weight of the truth crushed their manipulation. My phone lit up. Mom. I picked up. You humiliated us, she whispered. You humiliated yourselves. Silence. Then a voice I barely recognized. Liam, I know you won't forgive us. No, I said simply. Another pause. We won't bother you again. I promise. I wanted to believe her. But I knew better. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand. I didn't feel victorious, just free. I dialed a number. Mom? Mary's voice was warm, full of love. I smiled. I just wanted to tell you that I love you. She laughed softly. I love you too, son. This story teaches us a powerful lesson. Family is not defined by blood, but by love, respect, and care. Just because someone shares your DNA does not mean they have a right to manipulate, control, or demand things from you. True family are the people who stand by you, support you, and love you unconditionally. If you have ever faced a similar situation, where toxic relationships tried to manipulate you, know that you are not obligated to keep them in your life. You have the right to set boundaries, to protect your peace, and to choose the people who truly care for you. Does this story resonate with you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this message meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe to support us and help more people hear this important lesson. Your love and support mean the world.